Do you remember the different colored twins? People in their town never forgot them. One dark as dusk, one pale as dawn. Lena, with her deep brown eyes and black waves of hair, always looked like autumn, rich and grounded. Mira, with her cool gray-green eyes and hair like wheat, looked like early spring, quiet and bright. They were not opposites. They were mirrors with different shades. Today, years after childhood, they still walk together. Neighbors glance and whisper with the same wonder as before. The twins have grown, yet their presence still feels like a story you hear in a hushed tone. But behind their striking appearance lies something deeper, a bond shaped by questions, struggles, and the slow search for balance. This is their story, told not in haste, but in quiet steps. Stay with them. When they were small, the park was their kingdom. But even then, the whispers followed. Children stopped their games to point and ask, "Are they really twins?" Some laughed, some stared too long. The sisters learned to sit close together, their hands gripping the same swing rope as if to prove, "Yes, we belong." Lena, bold and protective, answered questions with a steady voice. Mira, softer and shy, often stayed silent. Still, the two never let go of each other. At night, when they lay in bed, they asked their mother, "Why do we not look the same?" She only smiled and said, "You are the same heart, carried in two colors." That answer stayed with them. It did not silence the world, but it gave them a thread to hold on to. As they grew, the questions grew louder. High school sharpened differences. Lena spoke with ease, her dark features drawing both admiration and envy. Mira, pale and quiet, became a shadow in corners, listening more than speaking. Teachers called them by name but looked twice, unsure if twins could look so different. The comments were never cruel enough to break, but sharp enough to leave marks. "Are you really related? You look adopted." Sometimes Mira wished she could trade her hair, her skin, for something that matched Lena's boldness. Lena, though strong on the outside, carried her own weight. She hated the way people compared them, as if one had to be brighter and the other dimmer. It was never a competition in their hearts, yet the world turned it into one. Home was their refuge. Rain on the window made the world distant, softer. Here, no one asked questions. No one measured them against each other. Lena sketched faces in her notebook, sometimes her own, sometimes Mira's, always searching for the line that made them alike. Mira sat close, reading stories that carried her far away, but her eyes lifted often, watching Lena's hand move across paper. In that reflection on the fogged glass, they saw something rare. For a moment, their features blurred together, and they could almost believe they were the same. Two halves, not day and night, but one steady dusk, where colors melt into each other. Those moments were small, but they carried more truth than all the questions outside. Evening walks became routine. They walked side by side, yet their steps told different stories. Lena always a pace ahead, Mira always a step behind. People passing on bicycles or walking dogs turned their heads. The contrast between them drew attention like a flame. Lena tried to shield Mira with her presence, but Mira felt the weight of eyes. She wondered if she would ever be seen as herself, and not only as the pale twin beside the bold one. Their silence on those walks was heavy. Yet, when the sun dipped low and painted them both gold, the difference faded. For a breath of time, they looked like two shades of the same light. Those were the moments Mira kept in her heart. Family held them steady. At the dinner table, their mother's words carried no comparisons. "You are my girls," she would say, with the same tone. Whether speaking to Lena or Mira, their father, quieter, often watched them in silence. His gaze carried both pride and wonder. He saw what others saw, the sharp contrast in his daughters, but he never questioned it. To him, they were proof that sameness did not need to look alike. Over plates of warm food, the sisters found comfort. They laughed, argued, and teased as any siblings did. And for a while, the world's noise fell away. But outside those walls, the noise always returned, waiting at the edges of their lives. School events were the hardest. On stage, under lights, their difference looked sharper than ever. Lena spoke first, voice clear and steady. She had always known how to hold attention. Mira stood beside her, silent, her heart racing. She hated the way eyes scanned her, as if to ask, "Why are you not like your sister?" But then, Lena turned, her words softening, pulling Mira into the space. "Together," she said, and handed her the microphone. Mira's voice shook at first, but as she spoke, the room grew still. Her quietness was not weakness, It was its own kind of strength. When the speech ended, they walked off stage hand in hand. The applause followed them both. Time carried them forward. College opened new spaces where differences mattered less. In the crowd, they were no longer just the twins. They were Lena, an artist with charcoal-stained fingers, and Mira, a reader with a sharp memory. Friends began to see them separately, to ask them questions without comparison. It felt like breathing easier, like stepping into sunlight after a long winter. Yet, even here, the old whispers sometimes followed. Strange how they look, nothing alike. But the sisters had grown stronger. They no longer gripped the same swing rope in fear. Now they stood side by side, each holding her own ground, but still tethered by something invisible, a bond that no word could cut. The library became Mira's haven. She thrived among books, where silence was strength, and answers were found in quiet pages. Her professors noticed her precision, her way of catching details others missed. For the first time, she was not the pale twin. She was Mira, a mind sharp and steady. Lena, too, found her place. She carried her sketchbook everywhere, filling it with faces, colors, and the lines of stories untold. Yet she often looked up, watching her sister, proud of the calm focus Mira carried. They had grown into themselves. Still, their paths, though side by side, were not without tension. Each wondered in secret, what would happen when the world pulled us apart? On weekends, Lena showed her art. Crowds gathered, drawn by the way her pencil turned shadows into life. Compliments poured in. Her confidence grew brighter. Mira sat nearby, proud yet hidden. The spotlight always seemed to tilt toward Lena. Mira did not resent it, but sometimes loneliness crept in. She longed for someone to see her, to ask about her books, to notice the thoughts she carried. One evening, a kind stranger sat at her table. Noticing her notes, he asked, "What are you working on?" Mira looked up, surprised. For the first time in a long while, someone looked past the glow of her sister and saw her. It was a small moment, but for Mira, it was like air filling her lungs. At night, they shared secrets on the roof, blankets wrapped tight. Their words floated into the cool air. Lena spoke of her dreams, to paint murals on city walls, to let colors speak louder than questions. Mira spoke softly, of writing, of weaving stories that lived long after voices faded. They listened to each other with care. They knew the world might pull them in different directions, but here, under stars that belonged to no one, they promised something simple. "We will not let go." It was not spoken loudly. It was whispered, carried gently in the night air, the kind of promise that settles deep, like roots under soil. Graduation came like dawn. Years of whispers, questions, and quiet strength led to this. Lena stood proud, diploma in one hand, sketches in the other. Mira, diploma clutched close, held a draft of her first manuscript. Their parents wept with joy, seeing not just their daughters, but the women they had become. Friends crowded around, each offering praise. For once, the compliments did not compare. They celebrated Lena the artist, and Mira the writer. It was a moment of balance, a moment that proved difference was not division, it was richness. And together, they carried that truth forward. Years later, their dreams touched the world. Lena's art filled white gallery walls, splashes of bold color, faces alive with feeling. Mira's book, its covers simple yet strong, sat stacked on a nearby table. Visitors drifted between them, admiring both. For the first time, the sisters' work stood together, not as contrast, but as harmony. Mira signed books with steady hands. Lena explained her paintings, her voice full of light. They glanced at each other often, smiles shared, silent pride exchanged. They were no longer the different color twins that people whispered about. They were creators, voices in their own right, together, yet whole on their own. One afternoon, they returned to the park. The swings were the same, though worn with time. Sitting side by side, they held the ropes, just as they had when they were children. But now, the whispers of other children were gone. No one asked questions, no one doubted their bond. They sat in silence, feeling the weight of years. Mira laughed softly, remembering how tightly they once clung to each other. Lena smiled, sketchbook resting on her lap. They no longer needed answers to why they looked different. They had written their own answers, through art, through words, through living fully. The swings creaked, but carried them gently, as if time itself nodded in approval. Now, If you see them today, you will not just see the contrast. You will see the bond. Lena, still bold, still carrying colors in her hands. Mira, still calm, still carrying words in her heart. Different shades, yet from the same root. They no longer fear the questions. When people ask, "Are you really twins?" they answer with a smile. Yes, we are. Not because we look the same, but because we belong to each other. The world may always notice their colors, but what truly matters is the life they built, the promises they kept, and the love that never changed. The different color twins grew into women who found their voices, their strength, and their peace. And as the sun sets behind them, they stand side by side, not just sisters, but a story, complete.